Hi, today I'm going to show you how to assemble the Death Star diorama kit you bought from me. People who are watching this and are curious, you can still order them from me. I make them in batches of 10 to keep the price down. It really is the most premium kit on the market with 4mm aircraft grade aluminum CNC cut to 1/1000th of an inch with all the reliefs and the patterns you see in the actual Death Star. It has a light up feature, it comes with a remote, you can control it not just on and off with brightness and everything. It's about 1 meter by 50 centimeters and 50 centimeters deep, which translates closely to 40 by 20 by 20 inches. I personally have about 9 figures in there. It can easily house more, like 10 or 11, I think. You can buy the painted kit from me, or if you buy the unpainted kit, you get the paint I use included with the kit. The only thing you'll need to bring yourself is a pair of scissors and a Phillips 1 screwdriver. And this video is a supplement to the 28-page PDF manual that you'll receive if you order from me. Very important to use that manual to get the exact location of all the panels when you're gluing or taping everything in. The paint is also the most premium I could find. It's about $75 per liter, so that's really premium stuff, but still, like all paint, you can damage it, so be careful when you use that, especially around tape and glue and all that sort of thing. Paint usually doesn't like that. And yeah, have fun. Alright, let's start with the sub-assemblies first. All the non-painted parts will be covered in foil. These foils are there to protect your beautiful white perspex. As you can see, once the tape is off, it's a lot more shiny. On the back, there's going to be 2 layers of foil, which is necessary for proper cutting. As you can see, the 2 layers here, make sure you get both layers. The white side, of course, is trickier because on these small parts it might be easy to miss taking off the foil. It is very important that you check all parts and that the foil is gone everywhere, so you won't have any problems later. For the future clips in this video, I won't be showing you how to remove the foil. I think you can do that yourself. So I'll remove all the foil and do the first sub-assemblies that we can then let dry while we take care of the next steps of the build. Now that I've removed the foil, let's start with the plate that says sealing. Now, after you've removed the foil, you'll find that it could be a bit of a static electricity here and there, attracts dust, so I keep a slightly damp cloth here. We'll flip over the plate that says sealing, so that the sealing text faces down, and we'll start with the sealing assembly. We'll get the grit that we use for this, and we're going to glue it, and we'll need to take the time to have this be dry when we attach it to the rest of the diorama. Here you see the painted plate. If you have the unpainted, you'll have to paint, of course, but it'll be a clear aluminum in your package. So what we want to do is we have to make sure that it's lined out absolutely perfectly. So let's start with that. So we'll start by getting the glue that you find in your package, and we'll put some glue on the back of the grid, as I like to call this, that goes in the ceiling. Like I said, I flipped it around, so make sure you, for the guys who don't have the painted set, you paint the side where it's beveled and leave the unbeveled side unpainted. And then we'll just get this paint, this glue, and put in some drops of glue, glue paths. The beauty of this glue is it is the strongest and also the most expensive glue I could find, and it is recommended for both plexiglass and aluminum. And it doesn't harden completely, so it always remains elastic, and which is what we want. And it doesn't dry instantly, so you have a little bit of wriggle room to move it around. So make sure when you put the glue there to stay towards the middle, then there's very little chance of actual glue squeeze out, which is important, of course, to make it look neat and clean. So once I'm ready to put in all to assemble, I'll come back to you. Alright, so I've got a line of glue everywhere. We carefully flip it over. Make sure you get the alignment right. As you can see, there are two cutouts, and there's a small one and a bigger one. And make sure you get the right position. And then you want to get to those corners of the cutouts, because those will guide you to make sure it's in the proper place. So as you can see, the cutout here has two long sides. This one has one long side and one short side, and you want to push it up against this cutout here and here to make sure you get the alignment correctly. Now, there's another little tool you'll find, and that's this little plate, and it's been cut to exactly 2.5 millimeters. So you can just make sure, if you check the position, that you feel it edges up exactly against the side. So then this piece is also exactly 2.5 mil, just like this end, so it will fit perfectly. Now that's all there is to it. We'll just leave it to dry under its own weight, and when we get around to using it, it'll be dry and perfect and ready for use. So that's the first of the sub-assemblies. Let's start on and go on to the next one. Now on to the second sub-assembly. We'll be using these inside walls. You can recognize them by the holes. As you can see, I've taken off the foil. Again, here it says up, and we'll need to flip this over. And what we'll be placing here are these spacers that have these little nuts pressed in, which allow you to screw in the outside walls and take them back off if you need to do anything about it. Okay, so you'll find a couple of bolts in your package. What you want to do is you want to screw them in. Make sure the bolts extend a little bit. Now yours might be a different diameter. I'm still experimenting with that. But what that'll allow you to do is make sure when you glue this on that it's perfectly aligned. So, and make sure that you glue it with the nut on the inside of the glue joint so it doesn't rip out. We'll be using double-sided tape that has come in your package as well. And this is really strong double-sided tape. Yours might have a different color. Again, I'm experimenting with different brands to see which I like best for you guys. Nothing but the best, of course. So let's apply these strips and move on from there. So once the tape is removed, we can use these screws to pilot our plates in position perfectly. And voila. Alright, we're ready for the third and final sub-assembly. Remove the foil again from the other inside wall. Now it says up here. In this case it doesn't matter which way you orient it, just as long as you mount it with this side up. This is the engraved side, so we'll want to put the spacers that we will use to attach the black back plate on this side. Again, I've got the construction prepared, so use the bolts that you find in your packet, drive them through so they stick out on the nut side, and then they will help you with the positioning of your spacers. Again, make sure you glue in the side of the nut so that doesn't move anywhere. And here you go. And once we're ready with the final assembly, we will be removing these bolts, of course, and they will go through the back of the actual back plate. So as you can see, the entire construction, by the way, is double walled. So there's an inside and outside wall, inside, outside ceiling, as well as floor. So there's room for cables and everything, like LED everywhere. So we can leave that be for now and start with the next phase. All right, so now we'll start with the fun part. And we'll start with the back wall, inside wall. You have to look for the up in this corner, because that's going to be mounted up, and that also affects the orientation of the decal you find in your box. So simply take the backing off, make sure you have this side up, aligned with the up on the back wall, and then just apply within these channels. Alright, so in your box you'll find black gaffer tape, and we'll be using that extensively throughout the build. For this part of the build, you'll want to cut off 2 sections and have them ready when you're getting ready to glue in the inside walls. So that's going to be these 2 walls. The gaffer tape will do 3 things. It'll work as a glue clamp while the glue is drying. It'll also, in certain locations, prevent light from seeping through small cracks, and it will strengthen certain joints that will get a lot of stress while we're building it. So it's important that we use this. You'll want to apply glue all throughout this joint, and because everything is going to be double walled, this is not going to be visible anyway, so you don't have to worry about glue squeeze out. You can, of course, clean that up later. But it's more important to make sure you get glue everywhere. So we're going to be applying glue to these 2 channels to make sure you get the orientation right. This is where it says base plate. Alright, so we'll start with the long side. Make sure you get the up orientation on this side, and it should just fit into the channel, slide in there. Now you want to make sure you have this lined up. Okay, hold on to this, get the second wall again, make sure you have the up engraving here, and it slides into this channel. Now another important thing to remember, and we'll take the camera in close to that, is to show you how this goes together. We'll clean it up later. Now, this is the important part. Make sure the short wall slides in front of the long wall here. And then you get the tape ready that we cut off like this. And do the same below here. Make sure you get a perfect seal. Again. Alright, so we're looking at the back joint here. Again, this is the short wall, this is the long wall, and the short wall lines up with the back of the long wall to make sure the orientation is correct. Now we're going to be applying some extra tape, like I said, both to strengthen the joint, but also to prevent light from leaking through as we place the inside aluminum panels you'll be seeing later. So you want to line up your tape against this spacer here, like this. Cut it to length. And just eke it around the corner against the second spacer, like that. All right, so we'll start the first column now. You'll have 4 of these and they will be marked 1, 2, 3 and 4. So for the first column we'll need 1 and 2. Now again, because this is one of those joints where light may seep through and we need all the support we can get, we'll be cutting some tape. This time you have to make sure it's not too long, simply because there's going to be a lot of light coming through the columns and we don't want that to be blocked by the tape, so only short pieces of tape. Then we'll be applying the glue and putting it together. Alright, so we'll start by applying glue in this channel. And we'll be starting with the column 2. This is important. You can just slightly slide it in from above and place it in these channels here. Now we'll start with the tape. Make sure it only covers a little bit of panel 2. We got a little bit more wiggle room on this back wall, front and back. Make sure it's snug up against each other. There you go. Okay, so then we'll apply the glue to this joint to join panels 1 and 2. As well, of course, as this channel here. And then I'll take panel 1, slide it in, and make sure it stays together. This time, the back of this one is parallel with the side of panel 2. Make sure you catch the glue squeeze out, because it will bite you in the ass later if you don't. Like that. At this point in the assembly, you need to make sure this channel is perfectly free. If you've done it correctly, this lip will stop exactly before this channel, which goes for both columns, by the way. Alright, so in this column, we'll have the most narrow version of this plate. And as you can see, there's going to be light coming through here, so we do want to apply tape on this joint, but make sure it doesn't peek out from under here. So you're safe to put the tape on the low end of the column, as well as the high end of the column, to make sure that it does stay in the right place. Now we can do one more piece of tape. As you can see in the middle, there's also room for a control panel later. It's going to be centered exactly in the middle, vertically speaking, so anywhere here should be good to go. But make sure it only goes a little way around the corner, because here there won't be a control panel. Now in your box you'll find 2 of these rolls of LED strip. But one of them will have been lengthened with this piece of cable, and this is what we're going to be running underneath the raised floor before we put the floor in. And we want it to come out in this column, so we'll start by pulling the cable through here, and it's going to go in this part, in this column, where it's going to meet the other roll of LED strip you'll find. So before we put in the floor, just put this cable through. You should be good to go. Alright, now you want to get this bar in this slot to support the raised floor for the time being, which will not be necessary once we place the blast doors at the end of the build. And they will fit right in there. Okay, so now it's time for the raised floor. Making nice progress here. This is the slot that will hold the raised floor. So apply the glue. Works best if you keep the glue perfectly perpendicular to the slot. Alright, so now we'll get the raised floor. You'll find it engraved in the bottom, along with the slot that will work together with the bar we just placed. Now this part is tricky. You want to slide it into the slot for the back wall. If you can find help for this, I urge you to do so. And then when it slides into this slot, you'll want to make sure it slides into the slot of the front. And you'll know that you'll have it when it perfectly lines up with your column and it leaves enough room here to place columns 3 and 4. So we're already ready to place the inside walls. Things are moving along nicely. We'll start with the short wall. Now this is a painted kit, so as you can see it came like some aluminum, and this is the painted and weathered version. So like all in Star Wars, it has to be the used universe, so it's supposed to be slightly weathered. Don't freak out when you see paint chipping and all that, because that's the effect we want. Plus it'll give you more depth and make the details pop a little bit more. So the proper orientation is this way, with the lights on this end. And we're going to be using very strong double-sided tape you will have found in your box as well. We've used that for the first couple of sub-assemblies that you remember. And the beauty is that you don't have to clamp anything. You can just slide it in perfectly and it'll sit exactly where we want it to go. So you don't have to tape or clamp anything up when we use double-sided tape. I'll show you a couple of strips and then you can figure out the rest for yourself. So there we go. Strip 1. Cut it. And off camera we'll be applying strips all around to make sure we have a perfect adhesion. Okay? Alright, so this is the pattern I suggest you use for the double-sided tape. If you want to use more, you'll probably have enough for that. This is very strong construction tape, double-sided tape, so you want to make sure you get it right in the first go, which means you'll have to slide it against the wall, make sure it stays where you want it, and it goes like this. Now, of course, I'll have to remove the adhesive backing first, but this is the move we're going to do. Yeah. Alright, we've removed the backing, press it against the bottom here. And here we're good to go. Alright, so we've applied the double-sided tape all around the edge, then here, here, and here, and then in short strips down the center, just to make sure. Now make sure you get the orientation right, which is this way. Now we're going to be doing one thing slightly different, and that is we're going to be starting from this corner and make sure it is as tight as you can get it in this corner. So put a little counter pressure on this point. Press as hard as you can this way, because you need to make sure you keep this channel clear. Press it down on this end and make sure it fits perfectly. There you go. Okay, so the next thing we'll put in is the floor panel. Now, as you might have noticed, all the sides are beveled. So Same with the floor, it should slide under. We're not going to be using double-sided tape here because we need to slide. It'll probably stay on its own weight, but we want to make sure, so we're going to put a bit of the glue on the base plate to make sure it doesn't move. After you finish the build, this thing will be entirely enclosed, so it shouldn't even be able to move if it wants to. But it also stiffens up the construction by laminating the perspex to the aluminum. So slide it under this wall, then slide it in, so until you have the perfect fit. Make sure it's seated exactly where you want it, and there's plenty of room all around, which seems perfect. Now this glue isn't very fast acting, so you have all the time in the world really to get this right, but I like it. Okay, now we'll be placing these panels. They're supposed to be like doorway, archway type panels. Now the thing to look out for, there are two things actually. First off, there's one that's slightly narrower than the other three. You'll want the narrow one here, and then for the other three it doesn't matter. The second thing to look out for, like I said in the previous clip, everything is beveled except certain parts that should be beveled, like these ends here. So you want the non-beveled edges to line up in the corner here, like that. We'll be using the double-sided tape again for this because we will be able to place it in one fluid motion. Alright, so for this panel we applied double-sided tape here and some small drops of glue along the sides. Because the tape is too wide, be sure to use small drops because you don't want any squeeze out here. This panel will work just fine with the double-sided tape, so tape here, and I put a diagonal piece here. Let's place the second panel first. Again, make sure you get the orientation right. We don't want, the non-beveled side should be on this end. We place it in the slot and then just twist it in place, like that. And then this one, again, I need to flip it because the non-beveled side should be here. I place it in that slot, make sure it's tied up against the other panel, like so. Perfect. Alright, so this is the coolest part of the construction because we'll be placing the ceiling. You want to be prepared for that. So you need 6 pieces of the gaffer tape pre-cut. It could be bigger than this, don't be stingy. These are going to be our glue clamps, making sure everything stays where we want it. I got some kitchen paper to make sure we don't scratch the paint, because this column will temporarily support the ceiling while we're working around it to complete the diorama. So get your ceiling plate ready, do a test fit before, and make sure you have the orientation correct. So in this case, I need to flip it this way because the larger of the columns is going to be on this end and the one with the short edge is going to be on this end. So I have that ready. And then it's time to apply glue along this slot here. Be sure to catch all glue squeeze out, because if it squeezes out in your diorama, it's going to be a lot less cool to show off. Alright, we'll be applying the glue again. Again, perpendicular to the slot. Make sure you get plenty of it in there. So get your ceiling plate. Make sure you have the orientation correct. large hole on this end, smaller hole on this end. Slide it in this slot. And then slide it back all the way against this wall. Then you get your support. Make sure it stays in the proper position. Now you have all the time in the world to apply your glue clamps like this. Alright, so make sure everything is well seated. Make sure it goes in all the way. And then just grab your pieces of tape and make sure it stays where you want it. Like that. Like that. As you can see, I should have gotten even bigger pieces of tape. That would have been even better. So off camera I'm going to be doing that. Alright, so we're going to be applying more glue clamps with the gaffer tape. The beauty of gaffer tape is that it's very strong, but it doesn't leave any glue residue. So I place some gaffer tape here, and then I just apply as much pressure as I can, because this stuff is elastic, and I can still simply tear it off and glue it there. Now I have the perfect glue clamp. Do the same again in the middle. Again, make sure you put some tension on there, like that, and tape it. Don't worry about anything, it'll come off beautifully once the glue is dry. We're going to be doing that a third time here, like that. That'll work too. Alright, now while we're here, this place is going to be hidden by a top panel anyway, so let's put some extra glue in these channels here, just to make sure everything is as strong as it possibly can be. Like that. Alright, so for the second column, we'll be building it in reverse. So we'll start with a metal part, then a perspex part, and so on. Now, the tricky part is you have very little glue surface, so you will put a little bit of glue here on both ends, as well as here. Spread it so it doesn't squeeze out. And you'll want to have a piece of tape ready to keep it in place while you're working on the perspex part. So place it in position. And use the tape to keep it in place. With this piece of tape, you can actually leave it here, which I like. I'll do the same along the bottom, preventing light leakage and keeping everything where it should be. Like this. Just curl it underneath the floor, like so. Again, we'll do it in reverse, so a little bit of glue along the bottom. Some more glue here. We don't use double-sided tape here because we need to be able to slide. More glue here. And a little bit along the sides. We'll take care of the stronger adhesion once this is in place. So again, get panel 4, slide it in the bottom slot, make sure it lines up with this slot, and just slide it in. Alright, to ensure that this stays in place, we're going to get the gaffer tape again. This time we can see where the light's going to come through. So, it's like this, in half. Really pull it tightly so that it sits perfectly. Again here, like so. And we'll do the same along the bottom. short strip, pressure, keep it in here. So it's nice and perfectly seated. All right, so I've applied glue on the bottom and the side here. Make sure to place it in the channel with the 3 facing down and inward, like so. There we go. So make sure that it's level at the top. That way you know you've placed it correctly. Another thing to check for is whether this part lines up with the slot. So there's room to place this panel. All right, so we're looking at the top. As you can see, we have most of our gaffer tape glue clamps in place as long as possible to make sure everything dries properly. We're going to be doing the same for the column 4 panels. So a little bit of extra glue along the side here and here, because it's going to be invisible anyway and you want as much strength as possible. Make sure it doesn't start moving on you when you apply pressure for the other panels. So put tension on there. Make sure this is aligned properly and put pressure on this. Like that. All right, so we want to free up our support to glue in the final column plate. To do that, we'll glue in the inside blast door so everything is supported naturally. Now in your package you'll find these spacers. You can distinguish them from the spacers we're going to use to screw in the back plates, because these won't have any holes in them. And they will support the floor in several locations to make sure everything stays where we want it to be. Like so. So you can recognize the inner blast door because it doesn't have the tiny gap in here. And it will have a slot here that the outer blast door won't have. So we'll put some glue in this channel, even though we probably won't need it, but better safe than sorry. We'll put some glue on this lip here. Again, we'll probably be fine without it, but again, better safe than sorry. Then you have to make sure you get the placement right. So come in at an angle, put it over the slot, make sure it goes up against the edge of the slot, so we have it positioned exactly right. And then we can just pop it in and make sure the floor pops into the slot as well. So again, we've got it at the edge of the slot and we just pop it in like so. So there's no space anywhere, and that's perfect. Same for the top slot for the ceiling. Glue. Like that. And make sure you hear the pop so that it sits exactly where we want it to. Like so. You got to make sure that the slot aligns perfectly like this. Okay, again, we want to have as much strength as we can here. So glue along the edges here. And use your finger to make sure it really goes in there. And then we get our glue clamps, the gaffer tape, like that, in several places to make sure we have perfect fit, like that, like that. We'll be doing the same at the sides, but you'll take my word for that. Alright, so when you tape them down, make sure you don't tape below the half of the height here, because it is possible to take off some paint. This is fine because this will be covered up again, but you don't want any paint to leave here. Alright, so now we've freed up our support column here. We can just slide it in place, like so. Now, of course, a little bit of blue in the center would be a good thing, so along the edges, just a little bit of blue. Same with the bottom and the top, like so. Slide it in. And we're good to go. Alright, second inside door, same drill. So glue along this slot here, here, and here. Just pop it in the slot. Slide it up against this piece here. And you see it just pops into place. Here, here, here. Make sure you get a good connection. Again, we'll be using some tape on the sides that will be invisible once the outside walls are attached, like so. Alright, so now we'll be placing the outside blast door, starting with the one on the front. You'll be needing this little tool that comes in your box. You'll place that here, because we need the outside wall to stick out just 2.5 millimeters, which this thing indicates. We'll be doing the double-sided tape thing again, so I've put double-sided tape strips along the front here. I'll be taking them off like this, and the same for this side. Voila! Now, a couple of important things to remember. The front blast door is even with the floor, so it slides up against but not over the bottom plate here. And then when we slide it, we need to make sure we slide it in at the exact right position, like so, before we flip it against the double-sided tape, like so. And you will see, first we'll do the bottom part, you will see that the slot here is exactly even with this channel. This is where you could later put in a glass plate. Alright? Now along the top, because this is a bit flexible, you need to lift it and make sure you have it exactly level with this plate when you glue that, like so. Voila! Alright. Second outside blast door, make sure it's even with this point, and then just press it against the double-sided tape. First the bottom side, then the top side, to make sure everything lines up the way you want it to, like so. Good. Alright, we've come to the first part of the LED strips. So as you remember, we threaded the wire through here with a roll of 5mm LEDs. It has an adhesive backing, so you go up, start here. This will provide light for the column, as every bit of light in the diorama needs to be indirect light to get the most even dispersion. You go down the column, around this spacer, and then you thread around the actual openings, as you can see. This will reflect against the white of the outside panel and give you a perfect even dispersion. So if you go up, go through the holes here, come back here, And then here you go up to the top, where I will show you again how to move on. Alright, so from the side we came through here, and then we start doing the same back and forth pattern again between the openings. So again with the light, as you can see, the slots in the ceiling plate right there, and then the light will be reflected off the white inside of the top panel, which gives the most even dispersion. I've tried a lot of patterns, this one works the best. So just remove the backing tape, don't put too much stress or pressure on it, tape it against the side, then make sure there's a loose curve here, tape it against the back like so until you run out of the first roll. Here you see how we did the second roll of LEDs. We start at the bottom this time, and you can see the wire going to the other column and the wire from the second roll come together beautifully in this column, exactly where we want it. We go up through the hole, and then we start the same back and forth pattern on the top. So we have everything covered, except that we come out here to make sure we cover these two lights as well. Alright, so here you see the pattern for the top. Again, you'll want to make sure you get the LED strips in between the actual openings in the grate below. Then it will shine against the white reflective inside of the top panel and give a very even dispersion. This is actually a bit of overkill, but hey, we have 10 meters of the stuff. So coming from the back column, going up through the hole and then back and forth until right here, we go back down for the two back openings. This is the end of the first roll coming from the front column. Both ends will have this piece of wire. You'll need to cut that off on the end of the roll so it doesn't short out. Alright, next from your box you'll get the AC adapter. Now we want to place it inside this column as low as possible. So you'll also get this cable that you find in the box with these quick connects. We'll plug that in, and then we'll place it like so. So again, the double-sided tape is our friend. So a strip along this side here with our scissors. There you go. Peel it off like so. And let's place it somewhere halfway. And it should stick like so. Alright, next parts from the box. This is the LED remote control part, and this is the adapter that will allow us to screw these parts in. So we connect those together, and then on the female end connect that to this male, and then we'll get the red wires, twist them together, black wire, twist it together, alright, it's easier to disconnect this part here. Get your Phillips 1 screwdriver. A small flathead should probably work too, but every household should have a Phillips 1 screwdriver, I'm guessing. So we've got the red wires twisted together. We put that in the positive terminal here. Screw it down. And same for the black. it in here, screw it down. Alright, good to go. Secure it with an extra twist. Connect that, and we're good to go. So now let's get some more of our tape to tidy everything up a bit. So let's put this like so. Good. Some more tape to get this where we want it, like so. All right, so now you get the IEC connector that's in your box as well, and that's a snap-in connector, so it should snap in just like that. Now lay it flat. You'll see letters N and L. Now the blue is neutral, so you slide the blue on the N with the connector, then the brown on the L for load, and that's it. No soldering required. Now we can just close up the back panel like so, and we'll be using the bolts that we already had, like so, and just screw them in. Don't over tighten. Done. We'll do that for the other four, same for this plate, and then we'll show you how to put on the top plate, which is just putting it on. Thanks. All right, so you see the side plate, same way, beautiful fit. This plate with the IEC connector, so this is the back. You're never going to see it again, but this should look nice as well. So then you have the top plate, which you can recognize because there are no holes. Again, you can strip the plastic. And put it on. With the proper orientation, the word top cover plate should be on the front side of the diorama, and just fit on like that. So here we are. Now let's test the lights. Here we go. Perfect. Now we'll do 2 more finishing touches and call it done. All right, the final touches. These 2 plates are also in your box. These are going to be control plates. Both columns get one. You're free to decide which one you want where. I just use double-sided tape and apply it in the center like this,